various options it provides there, exactly how the NoSQL is going to work for you. And then we'll be working about the infrastructure as a service solutions. I hope everyone remembers what is infrastructure as a service. We discussed about it on Friday, right?
Yes,
Right?
sir.
Okay, so let's start with the Azure functions. By name, what you guess what this Azure function would be? At the very basic level also, if you can tell me something, what do you understand by the term Azure function?
The basic functionalities which are required or which uh, like help in the maintenance of the deployment of any website.
No.
Applications provided by Azure.
For that, we already used app services, right? Okay, let me make it simple. In terms of programming languages, whenever we talk about functions, what are functions?
A process which the object follows if it is called.
Okay, so that becomes the definition of a method. So almost there. Can we say it is just simply a reusable piece of code with some name?
Yes.
And that can be called anywhere? Yes.
Yes, sir.
What Azure function brings in is exactly same thing, but hosted on Azure cloud. Now, how it is going to be different from app services? So technically, it's not different from app service. It works on the top of app service only. The main difference is when you talk about a web service or web app hosted on app service, it has UI. This function is not going to have any UI because it's a function. And as per the definition we put here, we just clearly said function is reusable piece of code. It's only about the code, right? And if it is only about the code, how can we have the UI associated with it? Now, what is the advantage of getting this hosted, this piece of code hosted on cloud? What are the advantages of cloud? Maybe some input can be taken from there. First of all, the main advantage of the cloud comes in. It is highly scalable. At any point in time, you can scale up the resource utilization or scale down the resource utilization depending on how many requests for this function are coming in from how many users at any given point in time. Highly scalable is the term I use for that reason. Understood? If more and more requests are coming, maybe I can think of creating more and more instances of the function and get it served to clients. For that, it may be using different virtual machine instances also behind scenes. This is also a platform as a service solution only. I don't need to set up the servers. I don't need to set up the server environment or anything. Just like web apps. We didn't set up the server. We just provided our input by what name the thing should be available, what configuration should be used. The server was set up automatically behind scenes, right? There was a VM getting created, but that was not under my control. I just provided the need based on which the platform provided me the VM. And that's why we call it as platform as a service. And because function app works on app service, it's exactly the same thing applicable here also. Do you get it? It is cost effective as well because it comes up with flexible deployment model. If you have an app service already deployed, you must be having app service plan already created. And as we discussed on Friday, app service plan is something which is tightly coupled with the virtual machine that is created behind scenes. Am I right? We created 2 to 3 deployments that day, and we saw the same virtual machine being utilized for all the 2 to 3 deployments. Yes or no? Same app service plan we choose or not? Yes? Or we created the different app service plans for every deployment. Just try to memorize. Yes, anybody?
We have used the same service plan, sir.
Same app service plan, right? And what did we discuss about service plan? What is service plan or app service plan?
Service plan is like distributed into three parts based on the number of minutes deployed per day.
Mm-hmm. Almost there. You have something like dev test, and then you have production, then you have isolated category, and then
Yes,
there you have different configurations. Remember, different
yes,
plans are there like F1, D1. F1 is what we use. Then D1 is there, which are shared ones. Then dedicated ones like B1, B2, B3 are there. Then in production category, we have S1, S2, S3. Then we have premium 1, 2, and 3, P1, V1, P1, V2, P1, V3. And then there are 3 versions of this also. P2, V1, P2, V2, P2, V3, and P3, V1, P3, V2, and P3, V3. And then we have more advanced plans. With every plan, we saw that the configuration of the underlying virtual machine was increasing. Amount of RAM, number of processor cores were increasing. And that is why the cost was also increasing. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
I hope everyone remembers that. So basically that configuration itself should be enough for you to understand that it talks about the VM. We create a VM when we create a service plan. Understood? The VM which is managed by the platform, not by us. Because to run any code, you need a machine. It may be a virtual machine, that's okay. But in this case, when you are using platform as a service, the VM has to be created and managed and maintained by service provider, not by you. And that's what exactly App Service Plan allows us to do. Yes or no? Yes or no? Did we create actually any virtual machine? Did we create any server? Did we do any deployment of the server? I mean operating system and all. Come on, tell me. Did we install any OS, maybe Windows or Linux or something?
No, no.
We just provided some configuration, right? Our choice, what I need. Yes or no?
Yes.
And everything was set up. Our server was up and running. Our application was allowed to be deployed and used at the end. Yes or no?
Yes.
That made the things easy, right? So practically we had a VM created. So can I say app service plan is nothing but a VM? Managed VM where the management maintenance is taken care of by the cloud service provider. In our case, which is Microsoft. Yes.
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 Okay. Now, when I say flexible deployment with function apps, the function apps are allowed to be deployed on app service, which means if you already have a virtual machine created for hosting your applications and which is underutilized, but you are paying full, can't you say, okay, take this code and execute this also on yourself? I know that the utilization is just 70% and my function requires not more than 5 to 10% of those resources. Can't I utilize the existing VM for which I am already paying? Or will I be going for purchasing a new resource? What is better or cost effective for me? Let me tell you one example over here. You have a vehicle in your home. You have 2 to 3 members in your home who can drive that vehicle. Okay. Mostly used by one person. But suppose you require it at a time when it is just lying idle at your home. Will you be looking to purchase a separate private vehicle for you, or more cost effective way would be to just take that vehicle and go wherever you want? Case 1 or case 2? Tell me.
Case 2, sir.
Because you require once in a while and mostly at times when the other person doesn't require it. Most effective option would be to reutilize the existing resource, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about here as well. I have a virtual machine which is lying idle for let's say 30% of the time. Can't I say my function goes into that and utilizes some portion of the resources from the remaining or underutilized 30% resources? What do you think? Would it be cost effective or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So that is one of the option. And then what if I don't have the app service at all, or I don't have the app service with underutilized set of resources? App service is there, but I don't see that it is free for even 1% of the time. What I'll do is probably I can go for pay as you go model, something which represents serverless architecture. Understood? What does it mean? I'll occupy some resources on some virtual machine, maybe private virtual machine only, which will host my application for that moment of time. It will get processed, and once it is done, that virtual machine will be put back into the pool, or the resources occupied will be put back into the pool. They will not be reserved forever for me. That way, I'll be paying pretty less. Suppose I don't have the vehicle when I want it. We do have the services of rented vehicles also, right? Like Zoom car. Can't I call for it, use it, and once I'm done with my requirement, I just leave it? I don't need to purchase the car. I don't need to spend that much amount. Correct? I don't need to actually spend money on maintenance and all, right? All other associated expenses I don't need. I don't need the place also to park it. Correct? Once I'm done, I will just call the service provider that okay, I'm done. You can collect your vehicle and take it back. I will pay for the actual usage. If I used it for 2 hours, I'll be paying only for 2 hours. Does that make sense or not?
Yes.
That is what pay as you go model is. Now in this case, there is no dedicated virtual machine always running for me. We call it as serverless architecture. It just creates its own environment for execution, gets the code executed on it, and then releases the resources. Understood?
Yes.
So that's what the benefits we have with Azure Functions. There are many times where we require some code which is not specific to some application, some general utility work it is doing, like sending mail or like saving data in the database. Some generalized functionality I have, calculating something like calculate interest. Why do I create a complete application deployment model for that? Can't I create it as a utility function and host it directly on Azure? And then based on the resource availability, I'll decide whether I want to go for app service or I want to go for the other model, serverless model. Yes or no? Because if I go for complete app hosting model, I'll be ending up paying more because I'll be looking mostly for the reserved resources in that case. I will not get the flexibility there in terms of deployment. Do you get it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see how the Azure functions are actually created. One more thing, whenever you talk about the Azure functions, they are always going to be trigger based. When I say trigger, what do you mean by trigger?
Something which sets off a reaction.
Correct. Initiate something, right? While reacting to some event. Yes? Now, when I say the functions are trigger based, means what? This is something which decides how the function is going to execute, when it is going to execute. It could be a manual trigger with HTTP trigger. It could be an automated trigger for various events, like if a message added to the queue, message deleted from queue, message modified in queue, then maybe something like some timer trigger is being used. Here for queues, it will be a queue trigger. Different types of triggers you will find. It's a long list, which decides when and how the function is going to be invoked. Understood? Yes? Let's go to the portal, log in. Make sure you have your personal ID displayed there. You know how to verify the things whether we are in the correct subscription or not. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Once you are on this portal, just confirm so that we can proceed. Has everyone logged in? Yes?
Yes, sir, logged in.
Simply go to create a resource. There are two ways to create the function. One is on the portal itself. The other way around, you can create it using any of the development environment like Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code or any other code editor like Eclipse or NetBeans or anything. Okay. So one is on portal, one is within some integrated development environment or code editor. What is the difference between two? When you do the development of the functions on portal, directly the code itself is there within the portal and it allows you to write only the simpler functionality based Azure functions. But if your function is having some dependency on some external resources and having some complex code which needs to be debugged at various times, probably portal based development will not be enough. You might need more professional development environments. That's where you go for some code editors or integrated development environments. So the first way that we are going to see to learn how the function app is created, we'll go with the portal based implementation. Understood?
Yes, sir.
So here we go to create resource and select function app. Everyone must be on this screen. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Here, the first two things you can understand. You need to tell in which subscription you want to do the deployment, right? So here we have just one option. For you, what is it? Azure
Azure
Pass
Functions.
sponsorship something, right?
Yes.
You have to select that. And resource group. Should we be creating a new resource group, or if we already have created a resource group, Providence RG, that should be reused?
Can be reused.
We describe this entire training program as one project, right? And what we discussed on Friday is, if it is one project, the resources related to that specific project should go all in one resource group. Ideally, that's a recommended practice. Yes or no? So by that, can we say select the existing resource group Providence RG? If you by mistake have deleted this resource group, no worries. You can create a new one from here. Provide the name Providence RG and say OK. Your resource group will be created as the part of this deployment only. We have discussed that also. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Next, it is asking for the function name, and below that text box, I can see something here. By this, what you understand? We did discuss that for app services also. What
So the
that
function app name should be globally unique. It gets
globally
saved
unique?
in this .azure websites.net directory.
So here basically we are looking to create a subdomain inside Azure Websites.net domain, correct? Something.azurewebsites.net. So that something has to be globally unique, correct? Because it is internet facing domain. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So provide some name. I'll call this as over dash prov dash demo func. You can use the similar name with your initials added either at the beginning or at the end to make it unique. Then again we have the two options, like whether we want the code based deployment or the Docker container based deployment. As we have not learned Docker yet, the only option that we have here is code, correct? Correct?
Yes.
What is this runtime stack? Look at the list and tell me.
Language of hosting, like the framework.
Practically, it's more about in using which technology platform you are going to create the code for that function. What does this indicate is I can create the function using .NET. Practically, it is .NET Core here. Azure Functions version 3 onwards, it is compulsory .NET Core. In fact, version 2 onwards only it is .NET Core based. Current version is Azure Functions version 3. Okay, and it uses the .NET 5 stack. Version 2 used .NET Core 3.1. And version 1 allowed .NET Framework or .NET Core to be chosen. So .NET platform, which means any .NET language can be used. VB, C#, F#. Okay, the recognized languages by Microsoft for .NET. Their own proprietary languages by default are supported there. Then Node.js also is supported. What does it mean? The code in my Azure function can be written as JavaScript function also. Server-side JavaScript. Understood?
Yes.
Then Python also is there. What does it mean? The code in my function can be written as Python language
Python language.
code also. Then we have Java. What does it mean? My code for the function can be written in Java language as well. By this, I guess most of the popular platforms have been already targeted. Yes or no? We do have another Microsoft environment, that is PowerShell Core as well. Correct? And then the most interesting one, custom handler. What do you understand by the name custom handler there? Yes, please. Yes? Anyone? Custom means what? It's a short form for customized.
Customizable.
Customized or customizable. So when I say custom handler, what do you guess what it could be? And I
Handler
said
that
it's
can
most
be-
interesting.
Handler that can be modified according to our needs.
Yes, almost the point. This says this is in language selection, right? And a runtime stack selection. So what does it mean? Apart from .NET, Node.js, Python, Java, PowerShell, if I have any other environment to be supported, like say my requirement is to support PHP based coding for writing the code for this for this function, I can define a custom handler which will basically process my function code. By default, it's not supported, but I can link one. The environment will basically require some configuration in such a way that the code is not going to be handled directly by Azure, but it will take help from some custom handler that you define over here, which brings in any environment virtually into the system. Now, do you understand why did I say this is very, very interesting?
Yes, sir.
What we should be selecting here? We have learned .NET, so obviously runtime stack will be .NET. And now it is providing me the options. In fact, .NET 5 also got replaced now officially on Azure. We have .NET 6 platform directly. And the earlier version .NET 3.1, which was used to be called as .NET Core 3.1 officially, is also there. So you have choice in which version you want to write your function. I'll say go with .NET 6, and then comes the region. So for those where Southeast Asia didn't work, can go ahead with West US, I believe, sorry, East US. I believe that is something which worked for most of you. For those where the Southeast Asia work, can go ahead with Southeast Asia. For me, I'm going to use Southeast Asia only. Yes. Done?
Yeah.
Click next. What it is asking for? Something about storage account. Why storage account? Your function is deployed as a code or container. Don't you think there must be some place on the server where this code or the container or the compiled code can be stored actually? For deployment, do you need a space or not?
Yes.
Storage account basically is that space. I am pretty much good with the name suggested here. If I wish to change the name, I can say create new and get it changed. It automatically generated a random name. Most likely it must be globally unique, because their algorithm already checks what is the name that is not still used, and accordingly it generates a random name. This also needs to be a globally unique one, and because it is system generated, we can assume that this is already globally unique. Understand? Then comes the operating system, whether our code is going to be running on a Windows based virtual machine or a Linux based virtual machine or environment. So because we are from Microsoft background, we'll keep on using Windows, but it doesn't matter. If the backend is supporting Linux, you can select Linux also. Depending on your need, what all kind of code you are going to write, whether that code is using Windows features or Linux features. If the features are neutral, it doesn't matter what you select. Do you understand? The kind of code that we are going to use here in this example is going to be the neutral one only. So it really doesn't matter whether you select Windows or Linux here. Anyone looking to try out Linux can choose Linux as well. But for that, maybe later on for some configuration, you might need to know some Linux commands. If you're aware of them, you can go ahead with Linux. Otherwise, stick to Windows. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And then you have plan type. This is which decides what you are going to pay, how you are going to pay, exactly how that virtual machine is going to come into picture. So we discussed about the app service based hosting. We discussed about pay per use or pay as you go serverless model, right? That's where the options are. Default is consumption, serverless. This is pay as you go. Based on the requirement, the resources are occupied, a virtual machine is created, your code goes inside it, gets executed, response is provided to the client, and then that virtual machine is killed. Understood? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Then we have app service plan. Clearly it says what it is. If I already have an app service deployed and which is underutilized, I can go ahead and select the plan, existing plan. So instead of creating a new virtual machine for every call, it will just put my code inside the existing virtual machine and get it executed. So I don't pay anything extra as I'm already paying for the virtual machine which has been already created and is underutilized. Right? Like the vehicle which you are sharing with your family member, you don't pay for it. In any way, you don't pay for it. You don't pay even the rent. It's free for you, right? Because it's a family vehicle. And when not in use, then only I'm using it. Yes or no? So there is no cost. Do you get it? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And then there is third option also, functions premium. Any idea what this must be? Here it shows something like elastic premium and pretty high configuration also it shows. If I click on change size, here I have from production environment like app services only, the premium plans, quite high in configuration and quite highly charged. The most basic plan itself is costing me 11,700 INR per month. When do I use this? This is app service plan only, but the premium one. So it has no difference compared to that of app service plan. If I close this and go for app service plan there, in that case, also here I can say select the plan which is already created, or you can create a new one. And if you're creating a new one, you will be then able to select the SKU and size of your choice. If you're selecting an existing one, that selection is not there because the plan already has got its own configuration. Understand? So if your code is very complex and resource intensive and requires dedicated resources all the time, probably that is where you will think of going for the premium plan, functions premium. It is complicated and requires more resources, and you already have an app service plan deployed with ample amount of resources which can fulfill your requirement and is already underutilized, then probably you go for the app service plan. But if it is a simple function, consumption plan is more than enough. So it's not only about simplicity of code. The thing is, it is not very resource intensive. Because if it is resource intensive, creating a virtual machine with huge configuration for each call will take some time. That will cause the latency, performance issues. So the functions with the code of any size running within it, but doesn't require too many resources, processor and RAM. Those functions can be comfortably put on the serverless model, that is consumption plan. Do you understand? Yes or no? Guys, respond quickly.
Yes.
Next. Here is the tab for networking. This is a premium feature which is about to be introduced, not yet made live by Microsoft. Preview means it's just a beta. So they have provided it here for some restricted usage only to test the functionality. This actually allows you to make this function app running on some virtual network that you have created for your deployment. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Then there is monitoring tab. If you click next or directly click on monitoring, that's okay. But now if you see, this is not selectable. And it clearly says that this feature is available only in function premium and standard premium, premium V2, premium V3, dedicated app service plans only. For serverless, this is not something which is allowed. That's okay. You can click on next or you can click on this tab directly. Then comes enable app insights option. I believe this is not new. We saw this and discussed this along with app services also. Yes or no?
Yes.
What did we discuss? What is app insights? Anyone remembers?
It helps in monitoring the app.
Yeah, so not exactly monitoring, but to collect the monitoring information, to log it, right? The Azure Monitor works on the top of the data collected by application insights. So in a way, what you said also is correct because it ultimately helps in monitoring. It is not a monitoring tool, it is data collection tool. Only that part is something which requires correction. Understood? For now, we'll keep it disabled. This is interesting if and only if I'm writing some actual application where the logging is required. Just say next. Then comes the tags. The tags can be any metadata information you want. Created by and created for are two minimum required tags usually. And there is no limit on number of tags that you can give. See, as the next item, it automatically creates the new row over here for adding another item. Yes? So there is no limit on how many tags you can have. Just click next and say create. The deployment initializes. So what do you think what we are actually deploying, what we are creating? What is this function app? Is it the function app which holds the function code directly? No. Function app is just a container used for billing purpose. Function app can have multiple functions into it. Just that all functions must be of similar type, using similar platform, based on similar technology, having the code running on the similar operating system based virtual machine. Understand? Understand? So once this deployment is created, the function will not be ready. It is just the container of the functions that is ready. And we will be charged on the overall aggregate utilization of the resources of the function app, not for every single function. Do you understand?
So for monitoring, it was no in this case also, no?
Sorry?
So that option, monitoring, enable application insights.
Hmm.
It was no in this case also.
Yes, yes. That can be enabled at any point in time. I mean, if we see that, okay, right now we are just learning, but we utilize this function itself for doing some serious thing, and I want the monitoring to be enabled. So post deployment also I can do that. Right?
Yes, okay.
Just wait for some time so that the deployment for everyone is finished. I'll wait for a minute. I hope it's done for all. Yes?
Yes, sir. Done.
Just click on go to resource. You should be on the screen now. Yes?
Yes, sir.
What do you see there? Some information like the URL. If I click on this, it is not going to show up anything because this is a function app. Whatever you are getting to see, it is just some information page which is talking about what functions are. In fact, the function version I can see is upgraded. Function version 3 was basically targeting .NET 5 and .NET Core 3.1. Function 4 now is uh, released, and that is targeting .NET 6 and .NET Core 3.1. Right? This portal, this entire platform keeps on changing a lot. So don't be surprised with that. It's a ever evolving feature and you will see changes. So this URL right now for browsing is not there. This URL will be the base address of the functions that you are going to create in this function app, and with the help of which you will be placing the calls as HTTP requests, mainly while working with HTTP trigger based functions. Understood?
Yeah.
Now on the left hand side you have some options, one of which is functions under the functions category. Do you see? Click that,
Yes.
and here on the right hand side you get an empty list. Why empty list? Because we haven't created any function yet. It is just the container, that is function app, that is created, right? Right? That's why it is empty. Let's click on create button. So it pops up the blade titled as create function, where it is asking what is your development environment. Options are there. These are based on what we discussed, correct? And we decided to go with the first demo to be created in portal itself. So I'll go with develop in portal. Yes.
Yeah.
And then here you have the list of different templates which actually are based on the different types of triggers. I said it's a long list, and this also keeps on changing with that every new version coming in. New and new triggers are being created and added here. So don't be surprised tomorrow if more new triggers are added, or maybe some older trigger which is no more required it has become outdated is removed. They keep on updating the platform. Understood? Here, I'm going to create my first function based on HTTP trigger. Select HTTP trigger, then the new UI comes here where it is asking for some more details for the template, like what would be the name of this function. I name this as HTTP trigger demo func. Authorization level, I'll just keep it as it is, function, so that every time the function is called, there is a API key that is kind of a password that needs to be passed into the request, then only the access is granted. If the key is missing, the function will not be allowed to be accessed. That's a security feature. Yes? Understood?
Yes.
No further thing here, so you can click on create. So practically it is going to create the function with some sample code also for me. Let it appear over here. In fact, the next step will be it opens that function also directly for me. I don't get to see this list. It flashed for a fraction of a second and it just went inside the function. It is just like if I'm on this list and if I click on this option representing that function. So I'm on this dashboard now. This is specific to this function. Understood? Here you have 4 options on the left hand side. If you want to see that password which needs to be passed along with every request for the function, you will use function keys. If that password seems to be compromised or hacked, you can basically use this option to regenerate that password also. Monitoring comes into picture when you have enabled application insights. This provides a dashboard where you can see the log data and you can create analytical reports on it. Integration, very shortly we'll be discussing about what it is. The first option here is code plus test. This seems to be interesting because I want to see what code it has generated. Just click on code plus test here. And there is a code editor within this portal, within the browser that will open up, showing the code generated as the sample code for this function. Do you see? It must be almost the same for you also. Using some namespaces, this is typical C# code, isn't it? File name is run.csx. CS is C#, X is extension. And there are 2 more files. README, you can understand what it usually is. Just a text file representing some text about, as a description about this environment, this function app. Function.json contains the configuration for this code. Just go through this code. I give you 1 minute and tell me exactly what this code is trying to achieve, what it is doing. I'm sure some of the portions you will understand. Maybe a few things might be there which are entirely new.
So I think it's a function that extracts the name from a response body.
Request body.
Okay, request body, yeah.
What comes in is request, right?
Yeah, sorry, my bad. So request body, it extracts the name from it.
Yeah. So apart from that, in addition to what you said, it is also trying to extract the name from the query string. Query string is something which is the part of the path itself,
URL,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Question mark something, like when you Google something, let's say if I go to Google and I put some search string, let's say I'm looking for Azure, press enter. Do you see here? It puts
Q equal to,
google.com/search question mark Q equal to Azure. Whatever is there after question mark is a query string. Whatever is there before equal to is the key, and after equal to is the value. Ampersand separates the key value pair with another key value pair. So here, this is another key and this is another value. So there may be multiple such key value pairs, each separated from each other with ampersand, and the first query string parameter itself separated from the URL with question mark. So here our code is actually looking to check if there is a query string parameter passed called as name. If yes, take it. Then we are looking to read the request body. Stream reader request.body that calls the method read to async because it comes as a stream. Okay, so ultimately this will be a string representing all the request body. And then we are saying JSON convert.deserialize object request body. So it will convert this to JSON data. And then in that JSON data object, we are checking. See here, name equals to name. Means if the name is already initialized, it will be directly assigned to name. I mean, it will be retained, which means the query string has supplied the name. If not, then it goes ahead and checks if the data is null or not null. This question dot says check whether data is null or not null. If not null, then access the name property from it and assign that name here. Understood?
yes, sir.
And then based on whether the name is still null or empty or not. If it is null or empty, we are returning the string that says that okay, the function was triggered successfully, but the name was not present. So please pass it in either query string or the request body. If it is having some value, we are returning the greeting message along with the function triggered successfully message also. Yes?
Yes, sir.
How do I test this? I have a button test run. Click on this. Here I have HTTP method get and post both supported, which allows me to select which kind of HTTP request I want to create. So let's say I want first this to be tried with get request. Get request actually would not allow me to pass the request body. So I get this body cut from here. It does allow the data to be passed to the server only via query string or header. Header is not something where we usually pass data. We pass some metadata information there. So I'll say add parameter here for query. What parameter we are looking for? Its name. I put name. And what value I'm looking for? Let's say it is my name. I put that. And then click on run. And we got the response. I go back to input. I delete this query string parameter. I don't have a request body either. I just say run. This time also I'm going to get the response, but shows me the text that okay, everything was okay, but name was missing. So either you have to pass it in query string or the request body. That's case 2. Then case 3. I want a post request to be created here and no query string parameter for post, as now the data can be carried by the request in the request body. I just paste the cut data and I change the name here to my full name and click on run. And I do get the output as expected. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Now one requirement. First, I close this. My requirement is basically I don't want to use query string at all. So I change this. I just say name equals to string dot empty, or I could assign null also to it. Then I directly try to read from the request body. So this code is fine. Here I will not say name question mark because this time I know name doesn't exist. So I directly remove that name question mark and assign data question dot name. And then accordingly the message also I change here. Please pass a name in the request body for a personalized response. The rest everything I keep as it is. And then save because I made some changes. So when I save, the code automatically gets compiled also. If there is any syntax error, it will be displayed in this console. You get it? Understood the changes which I have made? Yes or no?
Just two changes, right? String.empty and data.name.
Here it is. And yes, absolutely. The name question mark on this statement I deleted. Third change is there in the message. I just shortened this string. So practically all the changes are only about one thing. I'm no more using, or I'm no more depending on the query string to supply the data for me. I'm looking to get data only as the request body, not as query string. Understood?
Yes.
Now, save the changes and then click on test run. Go to input tab. Post is going to work without any issues. I get the response. I go back to input. I change the HTTP method to get. There is no request body in this case. I say query string parameter is also added. What do you think? What will happen if I click run? Will it provide me a greet message with hello Saket, or it will be providing me the error message? Tell me quickly.
Error.
And why do you
Error.
think so? Because there is
Because
no
it is not
code over
extracting from
here
query
which
string.
is reading from query string, correct?
Yes.
So don't you think in this input tab, the HTTP method list should not show me get at all? Only post should be there because my code is written only for the post handling, not for get handling, right? How do I do that? Close this. Go to integration now. Here you have a very important concept of functions called as bindings. The function takes in some input where it uses input bindings. It is triggered by some action, so there it uses trigger. The function itself does its processing, and then it has got the output binding on the right hand side where it talks about the output that it is returning. Understood? Understood?
Yes, sir.
Now, here, if you see the request, if I click this, it pops up the edit trigger option, because get and post, which one should be supported, or all two should be supported, or there should be put also, there should be delete also to be supported. This all is defined by the properties of this trigger, because that's where the get, put, post, put, delete will be decided. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So here if you see, it shows me the binding type first of all, then the request parameter, by what name the parameter is going to be taken in. Accordingly, you will be using it in the code. Any route template additionally it is using, just like in web API we saw, I can specify the route template exactly the same way. How do we put it into the APIs? Authorization level we have kept function, so that's okay. Selected HTTP methods, I do see get and post both, and then there are checkboxes. So I believe we have got the solution, right? If I uncheck this get from here and save, only post is checked. That means only post operation is allowed to receive the request for this function. Am I right? The same thing we do with the help of those HTTP get, HTTP post attributes, which we call as action selectors in APIs and in MVC controllers, correct? Save that. Now switch back to code plus test. Here now if you go to test run, there is only one option there in HTTP method, post. And if I'm giving that request body properly, I'll not have any issue. Yes or no?
Sir, could you please just show the changes that you made in integration?
Sure. So this part you understood, right?
Yeah.
So simply, if you understood the target, the final outcome is something which is expected. Am I right? So the changes required for the same in integration. Just watch it carefully. First, I go to integration. I click on the trigger type. We selected HTTP trigger, so that's what the trigger is in the binding. Request parameter name. That's what we are using in code also, REQ, right? REQ.body,
Yeah.
REQ.query. If I
Yes, sir.
change this, I have to change my code also. And then the only change we made is here in selected HTTP methods. Earlier get and post both were selected, right? I uncheck the checkbox for get. Only post is checked here and then click save.
What exactly does it do, sir?
It will not allow here onwards to receive the request as HTTP get request for this function. Whatever is selected, only that type of request can make a call.
Okay.
Understood?
Yeah.
Now when you go back to code plus test, you will immediately get it reflected here. So test run, and then when you go to HTTP method drop down, only post option is there. Do you see?
Yeah.
I hope you understood this whole thing. So now there is a small assignment you have to do. We will be doing that assignment after the break though, but I am explaining it right now before we take a break. You have to write up Azure Function based on HTTP trigger, just like what we did in our previous example. Previous example was very simple one. Take an input and show it as it is with greeting message, right? I want you to create an HTTP trigger function which actually add two numbers. And these two numbers will be taken as request body. Only post request should be supported. Understood? So the input that goes in should look like this. Maybe you have n1, some number, comma, n2, colon, some other number. And the output which I expect is something like this. The sum is, or better, the sum of 20, if 20 is passed here, and 10 if 10 is passed here, is 30. This is the output which I expect. So whatever numbers I pass here, accordingly this output should change. Doable? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so here we will take break. We'll be resuming at 11:50, and then I will give you 10 minutes to complete this exercise. So if you want to utilize the break and do it, I don't mind. You can do it. We'll resume at 11:50. Fine? Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, welcome back everybody. So we have 10 minutes from now. Complete the assignment which was shared before the break. I'll get back to you at 12:02. Okay. Okay, so are you guys done? Yes? Yes, anybody done? Please respond. Has anyone done with the assignment?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay, so can someone give a demo for it? Whoever has done it, just share your screen and do a demo.
So I'll do it.
Yeah, please.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
It's done.
Okay. And can I see the integration?
Integration for?
Integration part.
I didn't understand.
Left hand side, you have that option, right? Under developer tools. Code plus test and
Yes, yes,
integration.
yes.
Yeah. So go to integration. Click on HTTP trigger. Not that. That will bring back to code. So go to the integration once again. On the top left, can you see that arrow? Yeah. That will pop
Yes.
up that section again. No, extreme left below HTTP trigger 1.
This?
There is double arrow.
Yes, yes, this way.
Yeah, click that. Now click on integration. So under binding, you have that trigger under which you have HTTP REQ. That you have to click.
This.
Yes. Yeah, so just one thing pending, Sakshi. You
Yes.
didn't disallow GET request over here because the way
Yeah.
how you have written your code,
Hmm.
if you send a GET request, it is going to fail, no?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you should block it. So how to do that?
I will change it to just post.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Save.
Uh,
And now if you go back to code plus test, once it is saved, just go to code plus test. Click on the test run.
Taking time.
It depends on internet connectivity actually. So the drop down, if you check, it must have only post into it. There should be no get.
Yes, yes.
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 Okay, so logic wise, there was no challenge as such,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was more about, understanding how the function is created and how the settings are done in order to support only get, only post, only put, or a combination of them, right?
Yes.
Because the first demo was completely given by me. That's why I wanted you to try out at your own. Okay?
Okay.
So just unshare this. I hope everyone understood what and how the portal can be used to create the functions. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the functions in portal. How do I create a function in Visual Studio or some other code editor in case if I'm having complex code to be written as the part of it with some dependencies also optionally there. If I'm using dependencies, some NuGet packages and all, it will be much more easier for me to develop and test that code locally on my machine in Visual Studio or editor, any other editor, before I get it hosted on Azure. Because here I cannot put breakpoints, right? I cannot do line by line execution and check whether my code is correctly working or not. This is limited support. And that way, if the complex code is there which is not behaving the way it should, I will always have challenge. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so for that, what we do is we'll keep a function app deployment already done over here. Let's go to function app. If it is visible on the left hand side, or else directly you can say create resource and function app. The way how we created it initially. This is my resource group. Function app name needs to be provided. I'll say this is OI dash PROV dash demo func app 2 in VS. It's available. Publish. Again, I'll be saying code present. Though I'll not be deploying code. It's a compiled version, but compiled code only I'll be deploying, right? Instead of source code, I'll be deploying compiled code. Runtime stack that I'm going to use there again is .NET. Version 6 is what I'm planning to use. Region, you know what to select. So for me, it's going to be Southeast Asia. Next. Storage account I can reuse from the previous function. There is no problem with that. So I select the previous storage account. The one without new in parenthesis, I'll select. Yes? Operating system, this time if you want to try with Linux, you can go for it. It's not compulsory though. It depends on what kind of code you are going to write. Plant time, I'll keep it function, consumption serverless only as a simple task I'm going to do. Just remember that plant type cannot be changed from consumption to app service or app service to consumption. But app service can be upgraded to function premium and function premium can be downgraded to app service. So choose this carefully. Networking, there is nothing I can do here. So say next. Monitoring, I'll disable. So I say no. For enable app insights. Tags, I'll give as we have been giving so far. Next. Create. Let's say go to resource and we are here. Functions, this is empty, right? Now if I say create here, it will be again as if I'm creating the function right from within portal. But if you remember, here it provided us the option where I could select VS Code or any editor or Core Plus tools or whatever it is. Maybe this time less options as I'm looking to create the function for to be deployed on Linux environment. So that's why it has limited the number of tools. The tools which can be used only on Linux operating system are listed. It is assuming that the development of that function also will be done on Linux environment only. Now Visual Studio is not supported there, but VS Code is. Now in practice, right now we are not going to do development on Linux. Our development will be on Windows and will be deployed on Linux. Let's ignore this. Let's ignore this page also, just keep it as it is and open Visual Studio. Is everyone on the screen? Is everyone on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Click on create new project. What type of project we are looking to create? Is it a web application? Is it a Windows application? Is it a console application? Is it a class library? Or none of these, but something else? Can you tell me? It's actually an Azure application, right? So here in the middle drop down, language will be C Sharp, so I'll keep C Sharp selected here. In the middle drop down for platform, I'll select Azure. And then here I'll select cloud in the third. So the templates which are displayed now are specific to Azure, where you get one of the option as Azure Function, whether it is first or somewhere in between or last, it depends on how the installation is done. Got my point?
Yes, sir.
Select Azure Functions, click Next. Give the name as AZ_demo function app. Location where you have been saving all of your code so far. So for me, it was D drive, desktop backups, March 21, Providence 5, demos, select folder. Wherever you have been saving, you can select that and then say create. Yes, everyone must be on this view now. Is that right? Is everyone on this view?
Yes.
Give me a moment, guys. There is an important call I have to take it. Sorry. Hey guys, sorry. So let's continue. Here, once again, you can select what all options we have in Visual Studio. If you have got your Visual Studio update to the latest updates, or if you are using Visual Studio 2022, probably you will see .NET 6 also on this machine. Right now, this is 2019 and not updated to support .NET 6. That's why the latest version I see is .NET 5 only. Now, because .NET 5 is not available on the portal, either .NET 3.1 is there and .NET 6 is there, I'll go ahead with the selection for .NET Core 3 LTS. .NET 6 is almost backward compatible in terms of functions with .NET Core 3.1, so we won't have much issues. Now the list you see here, can you tell me what is it? Isn't it looking little familiar? We saw this in previous demo also, right? In assignment also, where we selected the trigger for the function. Yes or no?
Yes.
So that allows you to select what type of function you are looking to create. Here it says updates are ready. If I say refresh, probably it will show me the change stuff also. If any new trigger is there, probably it will get added. Any old outdated trigger, if it has been removed, it will be removed. Anyway, how we are right now interested in this HTTP trigger. A similar function we are going to create actually. Let's select HTTP trigger. Storage account will say browse, as we have already created a storage account. From the account which has been logged in, it automatically shows which storage accounts are already deployed. If this login is not the same as the subscription login, you can always log in with this, right? We have seen this for app services. Yes or no?
Yes.
Select the storage account that comes here. I believe there must be one entry only for you. Yes?
Yes.
Select that, click OK. Then it is asking for authorization level. In portal also we selected function only, right?
Yes, sir.
Go with the same, click create. If the function is something which is supposed to be used only by the administrators, the authorization level you will set to authorization. I mean admin. If it is allowed for all, I mean public use, then you will set authorization level to public. Understood? Understood? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you look at this code, this is somewhat similar to, in fact, exactly the same as what we got as sample code on portal, right?
Sir, here we keep authorization level as function only.
For now, we have selected function only, but it all depends on what is the requirement. If it is the function to be used by authorized people, we'll say function. If this function is supposed to be accessible by all, we say public. I mean anonymous. And if it is supposed to be the function to be used only by the administrators, we say admin. Whatever you have selected, if you want to change that, you can change it here. You have admin, you have anonymous, you have function. System and user is basically not something which can be used in the deployment environment. Only three are there: admin, anonymous, and function. These are only when we are running the code from within Visual Studio, system and user. Is it clear?
So I'm not getting the option to select the Outlook account.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah, I will.
Did you get that option while working with the app service?
Yeah, I got that time.
Okay, so you should have it here as well. Okay, just click on the storage account drop down, browse. There you should have the option. It's there.
Yeah.
Select that storage account which we created previously and then say OK.
Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome. Okay, so I need not explain the code what it is doing. If I want to make the similar changes here, where I don't want this query string to be supported, instead this is assigned to string.empty, and then here name question mark I remove, and from this message also I remove this part. And what that means is my code doesn't need anything that is retrieved from the query string. Then get operation should not be allowed. I can just delete this get option. It's more simpler here. And then by default, the function when I deploy it will be taking the name which is given over here. Right. So practically I want to rename this class first of all. I want to call this as demo func in VS, or probably demo HTTP func in VS. Say yes, so that your class also gets renamed, and exactly same name I pass into the function name attribute. After deployment, whatever you have given here in the function name attribute will be the name of the function visible on the portal. I want to test this function, so I just run it. So just write how we run the console applications. We can just click on start. It will compile the code. It will start a local server. which will host this function temporarily. Say allow access. It generates the URL for me to call this function.
So for me, it shows an error. The debug executable does not exist.
Just check your code. Your code may have got some error into it. Is it some compiler error it is showing?
Like I built the solution, it shows succeeded, but it shows debug profile does not exist.
Okay, can you share your screen?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, run it.
It shows this.
Debug profile does not exist. Okay. Just click OK. Go to Solution Explorer or right click your application, the project with the lightning symbol. Debug. Start new instance. Same error. Okay. Now on the top in the toolbar, do you see debug and all of that option? No, in the toolbar. You have debug, any CPU. Shiva, you are in the menu. I'm asking you to go to toolbar. So there is a drop down, debug. Left, left, left. Before the start button, you see there is any CPU, and before that you have debug option. Can you go to configuration manager? Click close. Okay, can you click on the drop down for any CPU? Configuration manager. Again goes the same way. Okay, can you click on the configuration drop down here in the list below?
Yeah.
Click on new. Type debug 2. Copy settings. Okay, okay, no. Leave it empty. Okay. And close. And then start. Okay, wait. Might be some installation error. What was the error it is showing?
Debug profile does not exist.
Just wait for some time. Actually, it is the issue with the installation, Shiva. You need to reinstall Visual Studio with the component for Azure tools. Okay, so you know that installer there we selected some 5 checkboxes. So the one for Azure you have to uncheck, complete installation, and then again run the installation with that checkbox checked again. So that will take some time. So for now, what you can do is just go to that drop down for debug again. and select release and then start. Okay, it is the same. Can you restart Visual Studio once? Run it in admin mode. Open that app. First one. Select the option to debug once again and start. Okay. So there is no other way. You have to actually reinstall Visual Studio for that Azure tool. So let me show you. Just close everything. I mean Visual Studio. Go to Start. Type Visual Studio installer. During the lunch break, you can get it done, Shiva.
Yes, sir. I know this like modify, right?
Yeah, click Modify. This Azure development you uncheck and then modify. And then once that is completed, again you have to come here, then select Azure development and then again modify. So it will reinstall everything. Okay. If that also doesn't work, then you have to do a clean installation of Visual Studio. Fine.
Okay.
So for now, you can just keep it aside as for now you can actually see the demo that I am showing. Okay. Okay, so here my code is running. I've got an URL over here, but there is no test environment here as such. So just copy this URL, open Postman, the one tool that we used for testing our web API, right? Select any open tabs and close them. Create a new tab here. Or if our function app is accepting only post requests, so here I change the request type to post. Paste the URL here. It requires name to be passed as the JSON object in the body. So I go to headers. Check if content type is already added here. If it is not, add it. With the value as application slash JSON. Not a new thing for us. We have done this before. Yes or no? Then we go to body. Select raw. JSON appears here. If not, select JSON from the list. And then here we say name colon put my full name. Send. The API response comes here. If I don't give this and click send, the error message comes. So our function seems to be working. Locally you can test. If you want to do line by line execution, what you have to do is stop the server, and then let's say here onwards I want to do the line by line execution. I put a breakpoint. On local machine itself, I do the line by line execution to see all going well. It's the same UI. I mean the URL that is created. So I just launch Postman again to create the request. So I already have the thing set for me. But now without giving the body, I'm just saying set. It comes here. I can see what request object contains by hovering on it. Expand. I can see the body, right? Everything I can browse through. Let's say F10 function key. So it goes to the next line. Here also I say F10. It retrieves the body and puts it here. I see it's empty because we haven't passed anything. Hence, the data is null, so dot name will not be accessed and name will remain empty only. And because it is empty, it goes to the else part where it is returning this message. So if I go to read this message, this is what I have, and that's what is being returned. I complete this. Just click continue. And here I get the response. So complete debugging support is there. Once I'm done through this debugging, fixing the issues if any, what I'm supposed to do is publish this function to the server. So right click the project, the function app in the Solution Explorer and click publish. It's Azure where I want to publish. So say next. How the host has been created? Is it function app on Windows or function app on Linux? In the portal, how do we deploy this?
Linux.
So let's select Linux. Next, it has to match with what the deployment has been on the server. It detects the login. It detects my resource group where the app with the deployment type we selected is filtered and displayed here. There are two function apps, but it shows only one because this one is the only one that is on Linux, right? So it shows only the compatible ones. Select this, finish. Finishing this will not deploy. It will just download the configuration for deployment, right? Just like app service. I save everything and click on publish, where the actual application is compiled, packaged, and then deployed. Okay, it is saying update functions version on Azure. The remote Azure function runtime version needs to be updated in order for this project to run successfully in Azure. Updating the runtime version may cause any existing function on the site to stop working. Automatically update the remote Azure function version and continue to publish. You know why this is coming? Because while deploying on the portal, we selected function Azure 6 as the platform. But the function we created in .NET Core 3.1. That's why this prompt is coming. It says you have to downgrade or upgrade the remote deployment. In our case, it is downgrade. Tool is offering me to do it automatically. So I'm okay. I'll just say yes. And this is the first function I'm deploying. There is nothing else that has been deployed within that function app as yet. So I don't care because there is nothing which can be broken, right? Just proceed, say yes, the deployment will start. Okay, it shows there is an error. What is the cause of error? It's not showing. Let me try again. Maybe, yeah, but only should show me that. Let me try once again. could be connectivity issue also sometimes. Okay, still it is failing. Let me delete the published profile here. So to delete the published profile, close this and go to Solution Explorer, Properties, and delete this folder, Published Profiles from here. Go to the portal once. Let's see if the version change has been taken into effect or not. So I'll go back one level, or maybe here I can see overview. Linux is okay, runtime version. Okay, 3.4.2.0 it is showing. It's actually changed. What is going wrong? Let me try again. Right click, publish, Azure, next. Azure Function App Linux, next. Select this, finish. And publish. If this fails, we'll try it on Windows environment. There is a possibility that there might be some maintenance going on for the Linux environment. Okay, this time it got succeeded. So probably either there was some connectivity issue or there was the profile issue. There is no problem this time. When I deleted the published profile folder from the properties and just redid everything, it just worked. Right? It could be the maintenance thing also, planned maintenance by Microsoft. So we don't know what is happening in the backend, right? Maybe this time when we did the publish, it just worked because maintenance might have finished. So whatever is the reason, the good part is it's published successfully, right?
Sir,
Yes.
I'm getting the same error even after deleting the published profile, sir.
Just do it once again,
Yes, sir.
right? And don't forget to go to the portal and then the function apps configuration here. Just make sure you have got the runtime version selected like what I have, tilde 3. This is important. You'll find it in function runtime settings when you come to configuration. Okay, just try once more. Let me finish the demo and I'll get back to you once again. Fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is deployed now. Where do I see this? Of course, the portal where I have functions option, I should be able to see the function here. That is okay. It was still reloading. Here is the function demo HTTP function vs. If you see this name, what is this name from where it has been taken? It is this. Class name you give anything, it won't matter. This is the name which will be used on the port. Now, if I go to code plus this, there is no code displayed because I have a compiled code deployed over here. Now, compiled code, how the editor will display now. So I don't get to see any compiled code or any code over here. It will just probably display me function.json, where it does shows me the configuration like what methods are allowed, and I directly have test run option. So I can do the same thing here. I can see only post method being there, parameter being expected as name with whatever value you want. And you say run, you get the response pretty quickly. This time it is more quick because there is no source code compilation happening at runtime. It's a compiled code which is running, right? So for that reason also, the complex function codes are written in Visual Studio. Faster execution, easy and quick debugging, troubleshooting, fixing. As you have the support for breakpoints and all, local testing you can do. Before uploading the code to the server, you can see everything is working or not, the way you want or not. And then only publish. Does that make sense or not? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So I hope everyone has understood this. Conceptually, if you are getting some errors that we can fix, but important question is, have you understood the overall idea? Why multiple options are provided to develop the function apps? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Hindvi, just check if it is working for you or not.
Yes, sir, it's working, sir. Just now it's got published.
Yeah, so it could be a connectivity issue in your case then.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I had a doubt.
Yes.
So in the publish section, instead of deleting the publish profile from the search explorer, we can also go on to the new option.
Yes, that is one and the same thing, but in that case, it will maintain two profiles, which may cause confusions. Usually, maintaining two or more profiles is okay, but those profiles must be with the correct configuration. Any profile which is having incorrect configuration or has got some issue should be deleted. That's why I asked you to delete. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So, anyone having any other question on this? No worries. Let's go for a lunch break over here. After the lunch break, we will be resuming with another feature in functions called as durable functions. And then we'll move on to talk about the storage services, followed by Cosmos DB. And the last part will be to work with ER solutions where we'll learn how to provision the VMs. Okay? Okay? So we'll be resuming at 2:05.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Shiva?
I just modified it again with the Azure development